or call 729-5761 for more information. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year from everyone at Night Auto Care. At KS Radio 1340, Chantae Alfred has made it. And then we're going to be talking to her before Christmas. We've done this for the last, 2-3 years now?
Well, maybe more.
Maybe more. I don't know, a few years here, but Chantae's here. We talk a lot about budgeting and about finding yourself at Christmas time in debt, which a lot of people do. Maybe go a little bit too far and getting too much and not realizing that you got to pay for all that, and it comes down in a big hurry, and the next thing you know, something else happens. Car breaks down, and you find yourself in a big pickle. Yep. But there are ways around that. And Chantae, good to have you first off, and you're looking beautiful as always. On this, you're looking Christmassy. Got your red,
got my red
on, you're ready to go. So very good. But good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
I haven't seen you in a while, and it's good to see you.
Yeah, good to hear.
But let's talk a little bit about the holidays are here. There's a lot to budget for the holidays. I think people think mostly what they're going to get for the kids, the toys, and the presents. But when you have family and friends over, you got to budget more food, higher heating bills, more water bills, sewer bills, different things of that nature, entertainment bills. Maybe you might throw that all in. So budgeting becomes maybe a bit of a challenge for some people because they may not know exactly how many people are going to make it in. So that can be one of those variable cost kind of deals, but you have to prepare for it, don't you?
Yes, you do have to prepare. And the thing to remember, if your house is the house that everyone comes to, if your finances are strained, then this is the year that you tell everyone, because you know who cooks the best of what. You tell them it's going to be potluck this year. And you tell the ones that bring the best, cook the best turkey, make the best pie, you tell them to bring those items. So it's not such an expense all on you. And you still have to prepare for that, but people get caught up in thinking, well, I've always done it, so I have to do it. And then you get into where you go and take out a loan somewhere that you cannot afford. But it's all about family getting together. So understand that that's the reason for the gathering, is the reason for the season. And everybody can bring and contribute to this meal because it is just a gathering of family and friends, and that's what you really want.
The burden shouldn't fall just on one person in the family. Let everybody share in that because that's really what it should be. But if you do want to start preparing, a great way of doing that, obviously, is something like a Christmas club. You can prepare, start that Christmas club now, and then by next November, you've got money saved aside for that family gathering.
Yes.
And then you can put that aside. But, I think people take it like, if it's going to be at my house, I have to do everything. Right. That's really not the case. And like you're saying, share that with family and friends.
Sure.
Have your brother bring a spiral ham. Have somebody else bring this.
Yes.
All that is cost savings for you. And then when you go to prepare it, have everybody help.
Right.
That way it's more of an involved Christmas because instead of having half the family out in that room and one person doing the cooking, and then when they come in the room, they really are kind of clueless as to what's going on because they're not involved. Yeah. And really, that's what Christmas is all about, having the family together, but being involved in everybody's conversations and getting caught up because there's a lot of times, and I can't speak for your family, I have family in Detroit, Michigan. I see them maybe once a year.
Yes.
It's hard to get caught up in a short period of time when everybody's split off in different rooms.
Right. Yeah. And if there's one cook, like I said, that cook is the one that's missing out on everything. So, like Stan said, spread the love and spread the conversation. So if everybody's bringing a part of the meal, then nobody's in the kitchen and everybody's with family, and you can talk and you can get caught up. Another thing to think about, like he said, if you start your Christmas Club account in January, it doesn't have to be much, $5 or $10 every month, and that will take care of all your expenses when December rolls around, or November if you go and shop early and such. So it's not stressing you financially. And you just have to think of what kind of, when, like in this December, in January, they're going to be moving clothes out, moving the winter stuff out, bringing in spring, and that's when you get those sales. So you can estimate how much the kids are going to grow. Buy them gifts for next year at a really discounted price. So, and then too, there are scarves and hats and all those things that make great gifts. But too, I was in Walmart the other day, and this couple, they had a basket full of picture frames, and they were getting pictures printed out, and those make excellent gifts. They don't cost very much, and it's more personal than just a scarf or a sweater or something like that. You know, a frame of memory. That's what I always tell people, and that's a great gift that everybody will always remember.
You know, on one of our previous shows, you had made mention that you can actually do your shopping all year long because as sales come up, you know, as the spring comes and they're clearing out winter clothes, and if you have children, you say, okay, well, they're going to grow to this size. You can actually buy those clothes at a very discounted price, put them back.
Yep.
Just remember where you put them, and then pull them out for the next year for Christmas gifts, and it will save you money.
Sure.
And you're not sitting there with one big bill,
Right.
especially if you use a credit card. Sometimes people like to, I don't want to say max them out, but they run up a pretty good hefty total,
Yeah.
and credit card interest rates, they're just out of sight, and you don't really want to do that if you don't have a favorable interest rate. There are
Sure.
some credit cards that have an okay interest rate for one or
Right.
two payments.
Right.
That's okay, but you just don't want to put yourself in such a bind that you find yourself not even be able to make the minimum payment.
You really don't. And two, you know, during this season, you go shopping and they say, okay, sign up for this card to get 10% off, sign up for this card to get this percentage off. But if you don't pay that credit card off in total by the certain time frame, then you're still going to pay that interest, and you're going to pay that extra cost that you were trying to save by signing up for that card. And then signing up for all these different cards, that hits your credit as well. So you want to be careful about that. If you have one major credit card, then get those items that you want and don't worry about the discount. But sometimes they have, you know, if you can get a 0% interest card that you know you're going to pay off, get that card, get your shopping done, and then pay that card off within the time frame.
Right. Usually it's 6 to 12 months with those 0% interest, but that's a big savings.
Yes.
And it doesn't put you in that position of knowing you have to pay that card off right now.
Right.
So you can kind of help, and that can help you budget your payments
Sure.
as well over time. You know, one of the things when Christmas time arrives and the New Year's is also property taxes all come into play. We know
Yes.
this, and as we've talked before about budgeting, sometimes we forget, you know, and I'm just going to kind of run down some things that people do tend to forget about, knowing obviously property taxes and
Sure.
your personal property tax, your real estate and personal property. That can add up to be pretty hefty at the end of the year. Now, a lot of people now are becoming a little bit more savvy, putting in a credit card where they have that 0% interest, and they
Sure.
can actually pay that over a little bit of time. But you have to pay a premium to pay that tax by a credit card or debit card.
Right.
And remember that if you do that online. But also don't forget, too, that you may have home insurance. You may have health insurance come due. Remember, all your health insurance now gets renewed now.
Sure.
You know, so sometimes if you're changing plans, you have to pay for two.
Yes.
If you change your plans on the federal government website, you got to prepay the new one while you're still paying for the old one.
Sure.
That
Sure.
can
It's
get
like a
kind of
month
nasty.
in advance. Yeah, you have to
know,
prepare for
so,
those things.
So these are things, as you're getting near the end of the year, that's why we're talking about maybe that Christmas Club account or a savings account of your own choice.
Sure. You
Don't
can-
just budget for the Christmas celebration.
Right.
Budget for all those expenses
Right.
because, you know, goodness gracious, we all know that all of a sudden can run up into hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars
Sure.
in no time, and it all is due at right now, right at
Right.
Christmas time.
Right.
Merry Christmas! And by the way, I want your tax money, I want your insurance, I want, you know,
Right.
and but that's something that you need to think about now for 2019, don't you?
You need to set it up. You can call it an emergency savings account, and everyone should have one. What happens if you go outside and your tire is blown? If your finances are already strained, where do you go for money? So if you have an emergency savings account, you can go there, pay for that tire, and you haven't messed with any money that's, you know, already there for your other bills. But that account can go for anything. You can save for Christmas, like Stan said, your property taxes, that health insurance, any of those things that you know are coming. You can prepare for those things. And like I said, start small. If you get more money in your paycheck, take that extra money and put it into that account, you know, and keep living the way you were living on the same amount and use that as extra. Don't just go blow it and say, well, I don't know what happened to it. It's the same thing with coming into the new year. If you get a tax refund, if you do, use that money, pay down some bills, put some in your emergency savings account, and then spend a little bit on yourself, because you are supposed to enjoy your money. But if you're stressed, I just got to go, you know, do something for myself, and then you don't have anything to show for it. So spend wisely. That's the thing about your money.
Exactly. And, you call it emergency savings. They used to call it rainy day fund. That was
Yeah.
my mom always called it
Yes.
a rainy day fund. I said, why rainy day? She says, because when it rains, it pours. Everything happens at one time. She says the stove will go out, the car will have, you
Yeah.
have an accident, you got this to pay, that to pay, and all of a sudden there's no money
Yes.
in the kitty to pay it. But it's a good idea to start budgeting that ahead of time. Not, and really, you've done an excellent job in teaching people how to budget things and to look forward, and that really is the secret, to
Sure.
look forward.
Sure.
Don't look back at what you had to pay this year, but look forward to what you're going to have to pay next
Right.
year, and then
Right.
start budgeting that way, because what you did this year's already passed. You
Sure.
can't change it. Now, it may be affecting what you can do early on in 2019, but as you get later in 2019, once you start to get caught up, like you're mentioning, start using a strategy on how to pay some of those bills a little bit easier, so it doesn't put you in that stressful situation
Sure.
where you're trying to raise a glass of eggnog and you're thinking, how much does the egg cost?
I know. Well, just think of your budget. When people do hear the word budget, they think restriction. So think of your budget as a spending plan for your family. If you have a child that is leaving home, going to college, then your expenses in your house should be much less. If you have a new baby, then your expenses are going to be more. So it's all in preparation for what's happening with your family.
Very good. A couple things that I wanted to talk to you about, because I've seen some interesting comments about this lately, which is, I think, is a pretty good idea. A lot of people always want to give Christmas gifts, or it's a physical item, something tangible, something you can hold on to it.
Sure.
But more and more people for their children are starting to do an investment account.
Sure.
And to set them up with some stocks or bonds, or maybe a little bit of a mutual fund or a
Sure.
portfolio. And now we're not talking $500,000. Wouldn't that
Right.
be nice? I
Right.
mean, that would be great. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Right.
Holy cow. But if they start out small and they get used to having something that they have put back, that's a huge advantage for that child.
Sure.
Moving forward, because they'll start getting more involved with that as they grow
Right.
up, and be a little bit more savvy as they get older about money. Do you believe that?
Yes, I do. And that's a way, usually it may be the grandparents who set up these accounts for their grandchildren. And that's a way to teach the grandchildren about having money, how to plan, and for the future and such. Because sometimes, the teaching skips a generation. If you weren't very good at teaching your children, you can impact the grandchildren's lives. And in turn, you are teaching your children just much later. But, if hearing about stocks and all those things stress you, it's a matter of, are you the type of person that can put your money into an account and leave it there and not worry about it? If you are, then you're great. But if you're the type of person that needs to look at that account every day, it's probably not for you. You need to have someone manage that account and trust that they're going to do something great with it. And you can start by doing something simple as a savings account. I was speaking to a grandmother, and she said, buying for my grandkids is getting so expensive. I said, have you ever thought of starting a savings account for them? And it never dawned on her. And so that's a cost savings, but you can always put money away for their future. So you are having an impact in their lives, and you're teaching them about planning for the future. So keep them involved so they know how much their account is growing. And that teaches them, okay, well, if there's something I want in the future, I'm planning for this, and I just put it in the account. So you planted the seed, and that's what you want to do.
And the same goes kind of for young couples who don't have a retirement plan. And we talk a lot about this. We've talked about retirement plans, IRAs, and different things.
Sure.
How fast that money can grow, right? It doesn't grow fast at all for the first few years. You sit there, and like you said, if you look at it, you're sitting there going, well, I'm putting money in it.
Yeah.
It hasn't gained too much. You don't look at the short term. You have to look at the long term. And putting money aside in an IRA, and this is, I'm talking about young couples or young people, maybe even as early as 18.
Sure.
Open up an IRA, or find a retirement plan that you can get involved with. Doesn't have to be an IRA, but if you're not working for somebody, getting a 401k is kind
Sure.
of hard to get involved with. But if you do that IRA and you put that money in every year, and it doesn't have to be the full amount that you can put in. I think people always say, well, it's up to $6,500, it's up to $7,500. I need to get all that money in.
Right.
Well, if you don't have it, you can't
Yeah.
do it. And then you can't touch it without a penalty in
Sure.
a traditional IRA. Now, if it's a Roth one, you're already paying taxes on it. That's different. But let's explain how important that is. If you start doing that at 18, 19, 20 years old and you get to be 60, that's 40 years of savings by increasing that dollar figure every year by some amount
Yes.
to when you hit 60. And who knows where Social Security will be when you hit 60 right now,
Sure.
especially if you're 18 or 20. But who knows where things are going to be that you would have money set aside to whether you want to put that money at some time in an annuity or you want to keep it in an IRA and withdraw once you hit, who knows what it'll be back then. But, right now,
Sure.
as early as 62, you can start pulling money out. But that's probably not the most advantageous way to do so. But let people, give them the opportunity to have that kind of savings that's non-taxable, not until you take it out. And then at a later time in your life, you should be at a lower tax bracket. That's the assumption there. That when you pull it out, you will not be paying as much.
Right.
Now, if you put it in a young person's account, you say, well, they're already in a low tax bracket. Well, why would I put it in there? Because you got to get them started.
Sure.
That has been the big bugaboo about traditional IRAs or anything else. Retirement plans. I'm 25. I don't need one.
Right.
You're wrong.
You really do. And it takes time to grow that account. As Stan said, put that money in there, have it automatically coming out of your account. You're not missing anything, and you're building for your future. All you have to do is have a conversation with an older person who's stressed about money and ask them, if you could go back, what would you do? And I guarantee they'll say, I should have added more to my retirement account. I should have added more to prepare for my future. And you don't want to be in that predicament where you're 60 and you're nearing retirement. You're thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't prepare. What am I going to do? You don't want to be that person. So if you're starting a new job, talk to that administrator about what I should do, where I should put my money, and then put it in there and let it grow. Don't take any of that money out. Just let it grow for you. And, check in yearly to see where things are, because stocks and everything, they go down, but they go back up. You cannot worry about those things. You're planning for the long haul. So put it in there and let it grow for you.
Right. And you want to try and maximize that account. So you don't want to just put into a simple savings account where the interest is virtually nil.
Yeah.
If you have an IRA and you see some of these CD specials, we're paying 2.2 or something of that nature for 18 months. You're not touching that money, but you can put that IRA in that CD. That's not a problem. So try and maximize your interest. So you do want to keep your eye on it.
Sure.
And especially if you're younger. I think there was a TV commercial, and I don't know who does it, but I think I have an idea, but I'm not going to give anybody a free ad. Okay? But when they took a bunch of people, I don't know if you remember, they put this big thing on the ground. They said, where would you start your retirement?
Yes, I
if you
remember
could have, if you could have,
Right.
where would you start your retirement now that you're older?
Yes.
And some people put it back as low as 15.
Sure.
And other people said 35. And then they showed how much they're saving, how much their account would be at starting at those ages.
Yes.
Well, the person that started at 15
Yes.
had over $1 million.
Oh, yes.
While the person starting at 35 had less than half of that.
Yes.
So you start thinking, wow, there's a big difference in it. So utilize all, and when I say this, and I don't mean this as a pun, but utilize all the assets you have.
Sure.
And that means investing. It can mean retirement plans. It can mean savings accounts
Sure.
for the holidays. Whatever assets that you have that you need to put aside to make sure that you're going to enjoy the holidays, or that you're looking at somebody else's future. It might be a great holiday gift to give somebody $100.
Yes.
Grandparents like to give kids
Yes,
a
they do.
$100 bill. Put it in the bank.
Yes.
Put it in an IRA. Put it somewhere that's going to help that child benefit later on. Because that moment of pleasure they have spending that $100,
Yes.
when it's gone,
It's gone.
it's gone.
Yes, just utilize those skills you have. Your grandparents, some parents are really savvy. Just have them explain what they did with that money. If they put it in an IRA, they put it in an account for you so they can show you this is how it grows. And in this amount of years, you will have this amount of money. And it's preparing for your future. So a part of doing the saving is understanding and explaining to the next generation all the benefits of what you're doing. So don't keep all that knowledge to yourself. And then too, if you're that type of person that does not know, then seek out resources. There are resources, free resources everywhere, where you can learn these different things. They have those books in the library, such and such dummies can learn this, it's just,
for dummies.
yes, it's just in simple terms so you can understand everyday language about this is where your money goes. And, seek out those resources. do whatever you need to do so it can benefit you and your family in the long run.
And extension.
Yes.
You guys have a number of different programs
Yes.
to help people out, and I know you've held programs before, and I'm sure you're still doing that
Yes.
in a number of different counties.
Sure.
That if somebody has questions about that, you can attend one of your courses to where they can come in and get the basics of the basics to
Yes.
learn how to get started. And that's really the key, is to get started.
Yes.
So now that I've done all my talking, what did you have to come in and we're going to talk about today? What did you have planned to talk about?
I know I have a couple of things, and
Okay.
we've covered some on one list, but I wanted to speak about a scam that was going around to targeting grandparents.
Oh, boy.
I know. They have it where someone calls a grandparent and they say, I'm a public defender of this such and so town, and your grandchild has been involved in an accident and they're in jail. So they need bail money. So, you get all up in arms, and the grandparents send that money, send that cash to those people. It's all a scam. And many people have fallen for this scam, and the thing is, how do they know the right things to say? And they can have someone get on the phone and say, this is such and such, and they're crying and they're all upset and they sound hurt, but they have looked at your social media information. And that's the key. You utilize your privacy settings. Only the people that are your friends should be able to see your information, because it is such a boom today where people look at that and they know their names, they know what the grandchild calls you, and when they call you, they'll say these different things, and that triggers to you, well, this must be, my grandchild, and they're just robbing people left and right. So be aware of that. If you have your Facebook page or whatever media you're using open to the public, close it. Only, like I said, family and friends that you trust, they are the only ones that need to know that personal information about yourself and see all of that information, because people can click on pictures, they put captions under there, they call you Grammy or whatever, and then they know what to say to you to have you send them money. So don't make it easy for these scammers out there, because they're growing, and this year so far they've already taken like $41 million from people, and that's twice the amount that it was last year. So we don't want to give them any more money than we have to, which is nothing. So don't make it easier for them. Have your kids or your grandkids help you with your privacy settings, and don't make it easy for these scammers.
Okay, and to add to that, that's very good, and that has happened here to a few people I know. But for the grandparents, if you're listening in, first off, if you hear of this is happening
Yes.
to you, call that grandchild.
Yes.
Don't just assume that these people have them
Yes.
locked up, because you may find out when you call them that they're answering the phone.
Yes.
And if you've already sent the money, it's too late. You're not
Yes.
going to get it back.
Yes.
But don't panic. And trust me, it's not like they're on the executioner's block that
Right.
then within 5 minutes they're going to cut their head off.
Right.
That's not going to happen. They're just trying to milk you.
Yes.
Instead of doing that, go through the steps. Contact, especially if you're a grandparent, contact them. First off, your daughter or
Right.
son. If you can't get a hold of them, then try and contact that grandson directly and make sure. Or tell your child that, hey, I got this call. Is this true?
Right.
Because mom or dad are probably going to know if you're in jail
Right.
and you've been charged.
Right.
And if not, sometimes it doesn't happen. I mean, the older you get, sometimes
Sure.
that separation's there. But call that grandchild directly. Don't listen to what these people have, and don't think you have to respond to them right away.
Sure.
Don't do anything.
And if they mention a place, a certain town that's not familiar, call that town. Call the police station in that particular town, because they would have the information if there was an accident or your child or grandchild was in jail.
And they can get it.
Right. So just, take a moment. Like Stan said, don't panic, because they are wanting you to panic and act really fast where you don't think clearly, and you don't want to do that. So call your son or daughter and check on them. Call your grandchild, and you can probably make contact quicker than going through these people that you don't know who called you.
Or you can scare them and say, well, let me give you the number to my attorney, and you
Yes.
just call him, and he'll take care of everything.
Yes.
And they won't call.
Right, and they'll hang up, and then it's
right.
a scam anyway.
Yeah.
But many people fall for these different things.
We really want, especially holiday time. They seem to always come out.
Oh, I know.
Between
they do.
October and December,
Yes.
and it's just ruined because the money you may have set aside for the holidays, you
Yes.
spend on this scam,
Yes.
and it's all gone.
Yes, and you don't want that. So along with that, we have, and like I said, we've already talked about some of these things, but financial New Year's resolutions. So,
Win the lottery.
yeah, if that happens, then too,
That's
you
my
need to
resolution
budget with
every
that.
year.
I know it.
It hasn't happened.
It hasn't worked yet, but anyway, it's like the
key word
first
there was
thing.
yet, though.
I know yet. We're still holding out, but it's like what we already talked about: build a budget. Second thing, eliminate credit and debt. If you have high balances and things, pay those things down. These are New Year's resolutions for yourself. Starting an emergency fund. Like I said, we've been talking about all these different things. Get back on track with your retirement savings. Know and build your credit score. You know what a good credit score is today? If you're in the 700s, you're good. If you're above 750, you are excellent. You can get anything you
What
want
about
at an
800?
excellent rate.
What about 837?
And if you're 837, you're golden. So that's where you want to be.
That's where it is.
You want to have the best interest rates offered to you. 0%, there's nothing better.
No.
So protect your credit, and your credit score will go. Pay your bills on time, pay more than the minimum if you have loan accounts, and your score will continue to grow. So think
Very
about
good.
that.
Let me ask you a question, because I know a lot of people they get stuck with credit cards, and they're paying the minimum amount, and they've been paying it for a long time,
Sure.
or maybe just a little bit more than minimum, and they have that interest rate at 23.99%. And it's there, so you're paying a lot of interest. So
Yes.
for every $100, you're paying $24
Yes,
for that. That's a lot of money.
that's a lot of money.
To be paying for that. So one of the things you can do, and especially if you've had the card for a couple of years, is call the credit card company and
Yes.
see if you can negotiate a lower interest
Yes.
rate.
And they'll do
and people
that.
should do that, shouldn't they?
Yes, you should do that. Take advantage of at least trying. If they say they can't do it, then if your credit is still at, if your credit score is at a good rate, then think about getting a 0% interest card. If you qualify for that, transfer that debt and pay it off and save yourself some interest and money in the long run. So it's still all about protecting your credit and making sure there are no negatives, because if you are you have a card at 23%, because the interest rate will change if you have those varying amounts on those cards. But pay attention to your statements. When you look at your statements now, usually most credit cards will have, if you only pay the minimum, they show you in this amount of years, this is the amount that you will have paid for this amount of debt. And it's a staggering amount. You don't want to have to pay all that money for a little bit of credit. So be proactive. Either get a different card. If you have good standing at your bank, go get a small loan from your bank and pay that card off and pay the bank back, because I guarantee their rates are going to be lower than 23%.
Right. But let's also back up with a little bit of a danger in doing a little bit of that borrowing from the bank. A lot of people will put their house up for that. Now, do be very cautious about that. If it's a small loan, you really don't want to be doing that. Most banks won't
Sure.
do unsecured loans anymore. So if they do, there's not many of them.
Right.
Okay?
But there are some.
There
There
are
are
some.
some.
There are some. You can do some shopping. You're
Yes,
right. You're
yes.
absolutely right. But don't get caught in that burden of
Right.
trying to pay down your credit cards and saying, well, I'm going to take out a second on my home.
Right.
That's not a good idea. Especially if you're barely making the minimum now, you
Sure.
probably don't want to do that. So, but be cautious. Talk to your bank and see if you
Sure.
can work something out. Second thing is do not go to these payday loans.
Yes, don't go to title lending. These payday lending places, do not utilize them. They
Well,
are
interest
there.
rates are like 300%.
Oh my gosh! If you don't read the fine print, Missouri is notorious because the regulations are so low. There are people from every other state coming to Missouri because they're thriving here and they're taking your money. So do not utilize those places. They are predatory, and it's a business for them, so they don't care about you. If you do not read the fine print, do not sign papers that don't have anything written on them. If you don't understand what you're signing, they're supposed to explain it to you. And in the weeds, you'll see you're paying 500%, 1,400% on a small loan. So when you're paying that loan back, you're only paying interest, and you're paying interest, and it's never the principal. And you get into that cycle, oh, it's easy to just take it out of my paycheck and this, and the cycle continues. Don't do it. Do without. If you get paid on a certain day, you can change the pay date on these different cards. But talk to your credit card companies if you're dealing with them, and they'll work with you. But if you're avoiding them, they're not going to work with you. So you can have a hardship if you need to delay payments or something like that. They are willing to work with you, but try not to utilize those predatory lenders or payday or title lending places, because they're not good for you at all.
No, if you put your title up for that, that's your title to your car or whatever, and you may lose your car. So you may ever comes to that. Let's also talk to people about, you hear these ads about, I can correct your credit, I can help your credit. Well, you don't have to pay this credit card bill. We signed this into law that if you owe more than $7,000, you may not have to pay your credit card debt. Okay. I don't know of any credit card company that's just going to say, you know what, you made a mistake, we're just going to wipe that $12,000 off, no big deal. That doesn't happen, does
No,
it?
it doesn't happen. And there's scammers out there every day. I always tell people there's nothing that a company can do for you that you cannot do for yourself. And if there's a company that you sign up with that says you just stop paying all these bills like Stan mentioned, and we're going to take care of it, don't do it. It's a scam. And your debt...
And you pay them.
Yes, you're paying them. And your debt keeps growing, and you're not paying attention to your credit score. Go to annualcreditreport.com. Get a copy of your credit report from all 3 agencies. It's free. It does not ding your credit score or anything, and see what's on there. If there's something on there that's an error, you can dispute that error. They'll take it off, and then your credit score goes up. But if there's something on there that you did, there's no disputing it. It's your debt. And so it takes time sometimes for those things to get off. But pay attention to the information you have, and don't get caught up. Pay your bills on time. Pay more than the minimum. Your score will go up. There's nothing anybody else can do for you that you can't do for yourself.
Exactly right. So that's very, very good advice. And so again, don't use these other companies. Just call the credit card company. The number's always on the back of the statement, even on the back of your card.
Right.
And especially if you've been with them for 2 or 3 years, more than likely you can say, hey, look, guys, can we drop this interest rate down a little bit? I'm still making my payments. Can we just drop it down? And if it's 29.9, they'll drop it to 24.9.
Sure.
I mean, that's not great.
Right.
I mean, it's not 0%, but it's better than 29.9.
Yes, it is.
Here's the problem, and what you're talking about, Chantae. If you don't pay those credit cards on time, then that rate goes up.
Yes.
And I remember seeing a gentleman's rate at 39.99% because he missed 2 payments out of 3 bills, and that they have the right to do that. It's in your agreement. So, that's another thing you need to read. Read that credit card agreement.
Sure.
If you don't pay on time or pay every month, they can hit you or send a check that's going to bounce.
Sure.
They've got fees for everything. So be very, very cautious, but watch those interest rates. The lower interest rate you can get, the better off you are if you have to hold a balance. But remember to make that payment. Don't lose that payment, because if you have something, maybe it's a 999, which isn't terrible for credit cards.
Right.
You miss a payment, it goes to 16. If you miss another one, you're at 21.
Sure. You're paying
and
late fees, and
exactly.
that negative shows up on your credit report. So that dings your score, and then you're in this little negative cycle. So you don't want to do that. If it's your first time being late, call that company and they'll waive that. They won't report it on your credit report. So you have to maintain a good relationship with the companies. So make sure, you can converse with them. You can ask them for a lower score. You can call them and say, well, could you not charge me for this since it's one time and I've been paying on time and such. You have leeway when you're doing what you're supposed to do. And everybody, makes a mistake or misses a payment. It's like, oh my gosh.
Or it gets lost in the mail.
Right. So you can call them and take care of that so it's not a negative for you. The only last thing I want to mention is updating your will. You don't like to think about people passing away, but if your paperwork is in order, then you're prepared for your future. And that's what you want to do. You want to make sure your final wishes are protected. Put people in place. You may need a power of attorney. You may need an advance directive. But make sure the proper paperwork is done for your future, so that's not a worry for you. And, people don't think about that, but think about that every year. Some people were married and got divorced 23 years ago. They never updated their paperwork. Think about that. If that husband or ex-wife that you're no longer with and you don't have a good feeling about them, you want to make sure they're not on your paperwork, So just think of those things and update your information and make sure your trusted family member, whoever's going to be in control of that, knows where everything is and make sure everything is signed for you.
Right. And remember, the will is going in through probate, so you want to make sure that you have somebody you can trust. And you may actually, if you have an excessive amount of assets, you may actually want to get a trust done so you can protect those assets and make sure that they actually get to the people that you want to get them to. I have been through an intested probate course where the will was honored, but the people had to pay for the items in the will to pay off the debt of the unfortunately of the estate, which was in arrears. And it does happen. So
it does. We've had a family issue we've been dealing with for years, and people have these things where our grandfather, he said what he wanted in the will and he assigned an executor of the will, but they took it upon themselves to say, no, I don't believe it should be done that way. So it's been an issue for years, but you think you can trust someone, but you need to make sure you can, so that doesn't fracture the family for years to come. It's everybody's missing the person that passed away, but you don't want to be the one fighting over assets and how you think they should be separated or given to distributed to everyone, but it happens every day. So think about that.
That's very good advice. So, and a lot of times you may need to contact an attorney about that. It depends upon your situation.
Sure.
But if you have a sizable amount of assets, do make sure that you get that checked out. You may want to just speak with an attorney. Most of those first visits are free.
Yeah.
So you can sit down and talk with them. Hey, give me your opinion. Can I go through probate? Can I still get these items to my family if it goes through probate? Or do I need to protect it with a trust?
Yes.
And if you do need to do that, then you got to remember, as you were saying earlier, you still got to update your trust, just like you do that will. Because you put things in the trust, things change.
Yes.
So you got to watch out for that. Very good. That's a lot of good information before the holidays. You're making people think instead of shop.
Yes. Save that money.
Anyway, Chantae, it's always a pleasure to have you come in. A lot of this you would think is common sense, but sometimes we lose track of it.
Sure.
When we're in it every day, sometimes it's hard to see that light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
And sometimes people need to take that step back and realize there are answers. You provide excellent information for people when they do that. Do you have anything coming up very soon?
I think I'm going to have in January. There's someone from the Career Center who's at the TCRMC. I know it's different now. The Community Center.
There you go.
Yeah, and we have a Take Control of Your Finances class. The date hasn't been set yet, but that's what I want to bring, and it's for the unemployed or underemployed. If you're stressed about money, then the class is for you. It's really good information to teach you the steps to take if you're strained about money.
And even if you're not stressed about money, but you just aren't familiar with how to do it.
Sure.
You're saying, I can learn. You can always learn something from every class, because we all know the economics of everyday life changes.
Yes.
All the time.
All the time.
And we're looking at, we're getting more of a cashless society. We're looking at more credit cards and debit cards. And, the people need to know the difference between a credit card and debit card. So I've had people tell me there's no difference. I said, you are really clueless.
Yes.
Big difference. And that debit card swipes, say bye-bye out of your account.
Right.
That credit card swipes, you've got a chance to go and dispute that, take it back without having to have it try and get that money back in your. There are good and bad about each one, but you need to know the differences. And these are the kind of workshops that you hold that can describe these things to people and say, this is what you need to be looking at. These are the realities of what you're involved with. And so I really enjoy it. And I've been in one of your classes, and it's very informative.
Sure.
and you really get down to the nuts and bolts. It's not you're not talking about investing your $500 million of gold into the Trump estates,
No.
etc. You're talking about the everyday life of everyday people.
Yes. And just listen, remember the title. Take control of your finances. You can, or taking control of your finances. Just remember that, and that's something to aspire to. It's going to be a
Always
great
pleasure,
class.
my dear. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
coming. Good luck to RJ the rest of the year.
I
and the
know.
Bulldogs, I know that they already have done us twice, but that's okay. We'll forgive you for that. In the meantime, before we sign off, we do want to tell you the City of Salem wants everyone to know the power is going to be off for a couple of hours in the area of South Warfel and Inman Street. A tractor trailer hit a utility pole there. So if you live in the South Warfel Street and Inman Street area, you're going to have no power for a couple of hours. So kind of prepare for that. If you have backup generators, you may want to get them hooked up. Get ready for that if you have something. But as of right now, the temperature's not too bad. So hopefully you have enough heat in the home to get you by, and do take care. Again, that's South Warfel Street and Inman Street. Power will be off there a couple of hours due to a tractor trailer hitting a utility pole. They're going to have to replace that pole, probably put a new transformer on there, etc., etc. Chantae, as always, thanks for coming in and spending
Thank
time with
you
us.
for having me.